I think sometimes I have this feeling that you all look at us and say, oh, 1 million people in the street, if we could do that, we'd be independent tomorrow. I'm not sure, we all have our own issues, but mostly I wanted to tell you how we managed to do that, how we get 1 million or 2 million or 1.5 million or however many come out year after year. We've done it 5 times now, once in 2010 and for the last 4 September 11th Catalan National Day celebrations. It's come out of this belief that Europe is a democracy and that the peoples in Europe have a right to choose our own future. And being a part of Europe has given us a way to, a platform on which to speak, which we didn't have under Spain. It comes from a frustration with trying to work out new rules with Spain, rules which we negotiated in good faith and which were continually whittled down and in fact scorned by the socialist politicians and then sued against by the right party, the PP, and who brought it to the Constitutional Court, our new Statute of Autonomy, which had already gone through all of these changes, and then on top of that they bring it to court, and the court takes 4 years to rule on our new statute, and then takes out some very important articles, one of which was the preferential use of the Catalan language, which is a fundamental piece of Catalan culture and identity. And another was a very symbolic thing, which was being able to call ourselves a nation. In the preamble, it wasn't even in one of the articles. It wasn't even an official, part of the statute. It was in the preamble. And even then, the Constitutional Court had to say, yeah, well, you can call yourselves a nation, but it doesn't really mean anything. And people were outraged. People felt really humiliated. And that was the impetus for many things. For the first major demonstration, which was on July 10th, 2010. But it was the 4 years of squabbling about the Constitutional Court, which really got people motivated and interested in coming together and figuring out what they were going to do. There was certainly an amount of frustration about what even Catalan political parties were doing, that they weren't doing enough, that they were being too set in their ways, that they were fighting too much amongst each other. And this there's some interesting sort of individual contributions to the process, one of which I like to talk about, which was a blog post. It was a blog that 7 people organized together. They were representatives of the whole range of Catalan pro-independence parties, and they said, well, we need a place where we can talk about Catalan independence without fighting. And so they would take turns. And on one of those on this blog, one of the posts, 2008, this is right in the middle of the talking about the statute, one of them says, who is our Martin Luther King? Who's going to lead us? What are we going to do? Why don't we get 100,000 people? We'll go march on Madrid. And somebody else, a couple hours later, adds in the comments, well, let's not go to Madrid. Let's go to Brussels. And the other person said, well, not 100,000, how about 10,000? And somebody else adds in, so this adds in the importance of social media and blogging and individual people taking action their own selves. By a week later, they have a Facebook page with 1,000 members, and they start organizing. They start having meetings, and they go to different towns all throughout Catalonia, and they get 12,000 people to march on Brussels in the spring of 2009, which is kind of an incredible feat. It's 1,300 kilometers from Barcelona. They march down in Brussels, and then more things happen. More things grow out of this. They do. They talk to their representatives in the parliament. But there's 2 people. They're walking along saying, wow, there are a lot of people here. What else can we do? What can I do? What can I bring to this process? And they say, well, we should do this popular initiative. We'll bring this to our parliament, to the Catalan parliament. We want to vote on independence. We want to be able to express ourselves politically. And so they start collecting signatures. In fact, they collect, I forget how many thousands of signatures, and they bring it to the parliament, and the parliament actually votes against it. They say, no, we're not really ready to have a referendum yet. The people are frustrated, and one of the people from Brussels, they go back to their town. It's a very small town, 8,500 people, little sleepy town just north of Barcelona, and they get a motion passed in the city council. There's all these individual people, and they get a motion passed in the city council that says, we're going to collect signatures on this popular initiative, and we're going to ask the people if they would like to be independent. It's kind of quixotic. It reminds me of Berkeley, California, who declared itself a nuclear-free zone, and everybody said, ha, what's that going to do? Well, Arenys de Munt, which is this town in Catalonia, decided to have this vote on Catalan independence, and it might have not meant anything at all except for two things. One is that a rightist and a unionist, pretty anti-Catalan party in Catalonia brought suit against the vote. They said you are not allowed to even ask that question. And at the same time, a fascist group called the Falange decided that they would have a march in Rennes. It was not the first time they'd marched. They marched there just after Franco had died, when the people were trying to take down the Franco monuments, and they had marched in Rennes. So there was kind of a history going on. And the Spanish court said to the Unionist Party, you're right, they're not allowed to ask that question. And to the Falange, they said, sure, you can vote, you can march there, no problem. Those two things together brought a lot of attention to Rennes. It seemed very low quality democracy, and people were outraged, and people flooded to Rennes, and so what happened was they nullified the motion in the city council, but the people decided to go ahead with it anyway, and so they had the vote, September 13th, 2009, tons of people in Rennes, and a couple things happened. One, the turnout was amazing. It was something like 40%, which is not at all bad for a completely non-official referendum. 92% or 97% in favor of independence. And those are, but that wasn't the important bit. The important bit was all of these people coming together and looking at each other and saying, I'm not alone. I'm not the only person. There's a lot of people with ideas. What are we going to do now? Four of those people get together. They're standing in the middle of the main Rambla in Arenys de Munt. They say, well, we have to harness this energy. We have to get people, working. And how are we going to get past the infighting, the political infighting? So they start my group, the Catalan National Assembly. And they say, to get us going, each of us will have an anonymous email account. And we will write to each other with numbered accounts, so that we won't know who's from this party and who's from that party, and we won't be arguing. We'll be talking about how to move forward all together. And so that starts in Arenys de Munt. And the other thing is, there's all these mayors and citizens and people from other towns who come to Rennes to observe, and they say, I want to do this in my town. And so for the next 18 months, there are more than 500 completely non-official referenda throughout Catalonia, including one in Barcelona, which was organized by Alfred Bosch, coincidentally, that mobilize more than 800,000 people. There's in 500 towns all over, and it creates these local committees, called the Decidesh, which means to decide committees, in all of these towns that say, we're going to do this ourselves. We're not going to wait for anybody else to do it. Spain's never going to let us have a referendum, but we're not sure that the political parties are ever going to get around to it. We're going to take this on ourselves. And those committees that organized those non-official referendums eventually turn into and morph into the Catalan National Assembly. And it is after that the Catalan National Assembly in 2012 starts to organize with this already established base of volunteers and activists and people on social media really interested in saying, we're going to do this ourselves. And it's an amazing organization. Right now we have about 80,000 members. It's the largest civic organization in Catalonia, and it's 4 years old. Just March 10th was its 4th anniversary. We have, that's 40,000 paying members. We have more than 500 territorial chapters in all different towns all over. I think there's 10 in Barcelona, so they're divided by neighborhoods. We have 37 foreign assemblies, including one in Scotland, for Catalans living abroad who want to do what they can do to help independence from outside of Catalonia. There's also 40-some what we call sectorials, which are interest-based and skills-based groups. Taxi drivers for independence, but also lawyers for independence, economists, educators, public administration officials, meteorologists. There's translators, which is mine. There's just all of these different groups mobilizing, organizing, activating people so they can use their own skills to bring independence forward. And one of those things is using the force of social media, and this is where we've really connected with Scotland to a huge degree. So many of us follow you and are inspired by you, watch you, are envious of you. It's true for your David Cameron, even if you don't like him. You know, we would trade you in a moment. So one of the things for the future, I think, that I'm really looking forward to continuing is to keep listening to your strategies and how you're working your struggle for independence, and hopefully you'll be able to learn things from us as well, because I think we have different strengths and different abilities that we can share. And so I invite you to follow the Assembly, the Catalan National Assembly. It's Asamblea with 2 S's, or me, Liz Castro, on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We have a website. Write us emails. We want to learn from you, and we're happy to share whatever we can with you all. And like Alfred said, you know, we will be independent one day, and we will be able to choose our own future. Thank you.